Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Intentional Conversations VodCast. I'm so happy to be here with you, and we here at NWC are grateful for your presence. We're humbled that you're spending your valuable time with us. We know that there are so many places where you could be right now on a Friday. So thank you for joining us and co-creating this space with us. My name is Cosette Strong. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I serve as the Senior Director of DEI Strategy and Design here at NWC. You have joined the Intentional Conversations VodCast, where we intersect discussions regarding diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging with leadership and business. If you feel comfortable, please take to the chat. Let us know where you're located today. I'm coming to you from Columbus, Ohio. I enjoy knowing that even though we may literally be across the world from each other, we can convene in this amazing space together from wherever we sit. So feel free also in the chat to share something about yourself, maybe the organization you're from, your LinkedIn profile, so we can stay connected after this hour is done. We welcome and encourage cameras if you're comfortable. Helps us to feel like we're not just kind of speaking into the void, but I hope you know that it's not mandatory, just another way for us to feel more connected. So let's get to it. Sit back, relax, and let's get ready for another Intentional Conversations VodCast. Yay, I love our opening music. Let the conversation begin. Welcome again. For those just joining us, my name is Cosette Strong. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I serve as the Senior Director of DEI Strategy and Design here at NWC. This podcast is supported by an incredible team of purpose-driven, passionate professionals. I am proud to be a part of this team, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge their presence and hard work every single week to curate this experience for you. Once again, I'm grateful to be a part of this amazing team. Did you know that it is Mental Health Awareness Month? As someone who identifies as part of the neurodivergent community, this month is of specific importance for me personally. It's a time to raise awareness of and reduce the stigma surrounding behavioral health issues. It's also a time to highlight that at least 1 in 5 US adults live with mental illness, and more than 1 in 5 youth ages 13 through 18 currently or at some time in their lives identify as having a seriously debilitating mental illness. It's time to end the stigma around mental health, and it's time to have educational conversations, even though they may be uncomfortable and challenging for us. This month is also Better Hearing and Speech Month. Did you know that this was founded in 1927 by the American Speech Language Hearing Association, otherwise known as ASHA? Each May, this event provides an opportunity to raise awareness about hearing and speech problems and to encourage people to think about their own hearing and get their hearing checked. So that should be on our radar this month and beyond. Next, we have to mention that we are celebrating Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. May is significant to this community because it honors the first Japanese immigrants who came to America in May 1843. And if you aren't already, take this time to learn more about AAPI culture and heritage and follow AAPI influencers. Next, now is the time to start planning your Juneteenth celebrations, your Juneteenth training experiences, your learning and development experiences, your workshops, all of those things. We here at NWC would be happy to partner with you to curate a meaningful experience at your organization. We know that Juneteenth is a federal holiday commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. So let us partner with you and support your efforts there. Inclusion Uncomplicated. Dr. Nika White's book, in partnership with Forbes Books, is now available. Head to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your books, and get your copy now. Also, speaking of Inclusion Uncomplicated. Unravel the Knot is our immersive flagship offering inspired by the book. Contact us to find out more about bringing UTK to your organization. Now, next week, you will not want to miss this conversation when we welcome a new guest. Tara Robertson will be joining us. We will be discussing how coaching for women of color is a game changer and how getting clear on your values as a leader is essential. We'll also talk about how DEI strategies should be data-driven, so you will not want to miss that conversation. Also, speaking of Intentional Conversations VodCast, we are now booking for Q4. So contact my colleague Amora if you want to be a part of our VodCast or if you want to recommend someone who should be. All right, I'm excited for this. It is time to welcome our guest co-host today. All right, IC VodCast community, you know how we do. Let's prepare to welcome DeAnna Minus-Vincent. I will share some facts about DeAnna and then, as is our custom, ask DeAnna to greet us personally. DeAnna Minus-Vincent has tackled the toughest issues plaguing our country today: equity, poverty, housing, health, and education, just to name a few. Yes. Did I hear someone say something? Okay. Equity, poverty, housing, health, and education, just to name a few. That's so powerful. DeAnna has created programs that move individuals along their pathway. But DeAnna believes that the most sustainable change happens when we work across sectors to re-engineer fractured systems. I love that word, fractured. In so doing, we can exponentially impact the lives of many and create that sustainable change that I know we all want. DeAnna is noted for not just programmatic and policy prowess, but also for scaling organizations. She has transformed entities, dramatically increased revenue, service regions, as well as product mix. Drawing from a broad range of lived and learned experiences, DeAnna Minus-Vincent currently acts as the founder and managing director of The Outcomes Architect, an advisory group intent on working across sectors to integrate services and reimagine how health is addressed and services are delivered. That's powerful. Immediately prior to this role, DeAnna served as Executive Vice President and the inaugural Chief Social Justice and Accountability Officer for RWJ Barnabas Health. DeAnna designed 2 award-winning strategies to improve health outcomes, promote health equity, eliminate health disparities, and reduce healthcare costs. Prior to that role, DeAnna served as the Chief Engagement Officer at Benefits Data Trust, a national social change organization, where she facilitated cross-sector partnerships, diversified that organization's revenue streams, and oversaw that organization's strategic positioning, as well as the Assistant Commissioner of the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, where she honed her community development skills. DeAnna received a Master's of Public Administration from Rutgers, a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Morgan State, a historically Black university, and is currently pursuing a doctorate in business administration with a concentration in leadership and innovation. DeAnna was born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey, and lives in Lumberton, New Jersey now with her husband, Daryl, and her daughter, Darren. Please welcome DeAnna. Hi, DeAnna. I am so excited for this conversation. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to join the conversation.
You are welcome. One of the things that we do here in our community is, after I have read your bio, we ask you to welcome us in your own way, to greet us in a way you want to, maybe sharing something that maybe we didn't learn from your bio that I just read, that we can't find online or on LinkedIn. So I welcome you to do that now.
Definitely. So some of the most important roles I have is I am a mother. And I am a mother of a soon-to-be graduating student from college. She graduates tomorrow. Wow. From St. Joe's University, and I am so proud. And she has a job, so I'm even prouder. So she will be joining Boston Consulting Group. I am also the wife. I am married to my very best friend. We are celebrating 27 years and I still have butterflies in my stomach every day.
I love that.
I always say that it is easy to love someone and it's harder to like them every day, and I like you. So those are my 2 most important roles. And I can't wait to join next week if you'll allow me, because data-driven is kind of my thing.
Mhm.
I started as an accounting major, which at Drexel University, which is I
Oh,
don't know a lot about. And then I said I can't do debits and credits the rest of my life, and then I turned totally and went to sociology.
yeah.
So that's a little bit about me that people don't know. And I am a fierce Trentonian. I love New Jersey, and I'm also a fierce 49ers fan. So that's a
Wow.
little bit about me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing something new about yourself. And congratulations on your daughter's upcoming graduation. I'm very excited for you. My fingers are crossed, positive thoughts are going out that it does not rain in Trenton tomorrow so that you and all your family members can be there to celebrate your baby girl. So yeah, fingers crossed for you. I am
Thank you.
so excited about this conversation, DeAnna. I cannot even tell you how excited I am. When I read your bio, I was like, first of all, this person is busy. Okay. You are booked and busy. All right. So that is one thing. Also, I am just so excited to hear about more of your beginnings and your career. So let's get into it. Tell us more about your career. How did you get started?
So like I said, I started as an accounting major and I couldn't do that. And then I wanted to save the world. But I knew that direct service wasn't really for me. I didn't know that I wanted to be an administrator. And a lot of people don't really want to be an administrator, but that's what I wanted to be. I tried direct service in college. I worked in group homes, and I quickly realized that that wasn't for me either. And I got my start working for the City of Trenton Department of Health and thinking about maternal child health, thinking about substance use, thinking about mental health issues. And my first, what I consider a real job, was with one of the maternal child health consortia. In New Jersey, every birthing hospital must belong to a consortia where a percentage of every birth is given to this maternal child health planning entity to think about better maternal child health outcomes. And it was there where I had the opportunity to sit on the then Governor Christy Todd Whitman's first blue ribbon panel on Black infant mortality. And that was so cutting edge at the time. And it was there, I mean, because at the time people said, oh, it's just because Black women use too many substances, or Black women don't go for their prenatal care. And it was in that report that systemic racism came up to the fore, because we looked at Black women from other countries and we looked at other things, and it said, no, Black women from other countries don't have the same poor maternal outcomes until they come to America. It's not till that second generation. And that really clicked in me. First, it clicked because I had never really put the two together, that maybe Black babies were dying because of systemic racism, and just the amount of hate mail we got. I remember one letter that came and it said, why do you care about Black babies when Black bears are dying in New Jersey? And I thought to myself, bears or babies? Babies of any color.
Wow.
Why would you ever care about a bear? And I'm sorry, animal lovers. Okay, bears are probably important too, but a baby.
Yeah.
And it showed me just how people thought. And I stayed in maternal child health. And at the time, my husband and I both, we did our master's programs at the same time, and we just finished up, and we thought it was time for us to start a family. We had been married 6 years. And we got pregnant. I was working in maternal child health. I had the best care. I was working strenuously. I'd done everything I could, and we lost our first baby as I was working on Black infant mortality, as I was interviewing mothers who had lost their babies. And it was just really eye-opening, the whole experience. And but I decided, even though I loved that work, I wasn't a clinician. I didn't want to be pigeonholed at that point in my career. I was more of a generalist. So at the time, the next governor tapped me on the shoulder to join his administration to oversee housing. And I saw someone ask me how many months. So I was 4 months along. So it was still early in my pregnancy, but nonetheless, it was still shocking. And how I was told was pretty callous. They said, oh, no wonder you lost your baby. It was just it just didn't take, bad egg. And it was just like, well, yeah, it was the egg to you, but it was my child. So, so we moved along, but I always say that wasn't the one that the universe had for me. She was Darren, and she is graduating tomorrow. That's the one the universe had. So I went to oversee housing, and I didn't know a lot about housing other than that people should have it. It should be affordable. It should be safe. And so I oversaw the softer side of housing, weatherization, playgrounds, building safe neighborhoods. And I quickly moved up within the Department of Community Affairs to be Deputy Chief of Staff and then ultimately Assistant Commissioner. And it was a really tough time. I had never worked in state government. And people didn't like that I reorganized state government. I didn't know you weren't supposed to reorganize state government. I didn't know that it wasn't supposed to be efficient. So I thought that it should be organized geographically. I thought that people should get to know the mayor and the nonprofits, and we should actually build neighborhoods as opposed to programmatically. So, you know, rehabbing one house over here, and people picketed me. Men used the urinal, my picture on the urinal for target practice.
Wow.
I was called a darkie the first 4 days on the job. It was hard, but again, I had a loving family, and it was what it was. I mean, it taught me to have really broad shoulders, and I think it's all about teaching experiences. So, so then I moved to Benefits Data Trust, learned about big data, learned how you could use data-driven strategies, target outreach to really help people get the services and supports that they need. And with that mindset, I came to RWJ Barnabas Health and really looked to change how healthcare was delivered.
Wow. DeAnna, what a story. What a story. I can see in the chat your story, the things that you're sharing, resonating powerfully with people in our community already. And thank you for sharing so authentically and so vulnerably. Your story about your experience with miscarriage is especially powerful, resonates with me. I don't know any woman of color who does not have a story like yours. I have a story like yours when interacting with healthcare professionals and being treated so callously. And I remember thinking at that time, you know, this is why we need more people of color in the healthcare sector. This is why we need more women of color who are health practitioners. This is why I personally will never have a doctor who is not a person of color. This is why. And so I'd love to hear from you. Why, DeAnna, is it important for Black women to pursue careers in the healthcare sector?
I think it's critical. And I've been trying to find, and I'll let me just preface this a little bit. I've been trying to find ways to decompress, to de-stress. And I haven't always taken that time. And so I decided, and this may sound a little bit like couch potato-ish, and that's okay. I decided to start watching Grey's Anatomy from season 1. And I just got to the episode where Miranda Bailey had a heart attack.
So powerful. Yes.
And she went to and Miranda Bailey, for anybody who doesn't watch, she's the chief of surgery at the hospital that the show is about. And she went to a competing hospital to have a heart attack, and she told them all the symptoms and they didn't listen. And she had to repeat, and they ran these tests, and she said, well, run these other tests, and they didn't listen. So she called over her colleagues from her hospital system. And then she had a major heart attack. They called her husband finally. And then at the end, she called her mother.
Yeah.
And I found myself just bawling. And
Yep.
I bawled and bawled and bawled
Right.
and bawled and
Same.
bawled. And my husband came home and he's looking. Because on May 7th of 2022, I had a heart attack.
Oh my goodness.
And it was the same day that my mother was diagnosed with COVID, which took her a month later. And the first thing I did when I came out from being stented was I called my mom. And I realized, and the healthcare system treated us both so inequitably. And my story was Miranda's story. And my story and Miranda's story is millions of women's story. And I'm not a clinician. I pretend to be, but I'm not a clinician.
You play one on TV.
Right. But Miranda on TV is the doctor.
That's
and
right.
She told them tests to run, and she told them, and she's the highest ranking woman
That's right.
in the healthcare system.
Yeah.
At my healthcare system, I was the highest ranking woman of color. And 3 weeks prior, well, let's go back to February. So May 7th, I had the heart attack. I was a woman of impact for the American Heart Association because my mother had heart disease and my grandmother had heart disease. And they took video of me going to my cardiologist as a part of my story. And there's video of me saying, my blood pressure has gone up over the past couple of years. Do you think it's because of my age? And they said, no, it's 120/70. That's perfect. I said, but it used to be 86/68. And they used to take it twice because they couldn't believe it's so low. That's not my baseline. And my arm's been getting numb and I can't feel my fingers sometimes. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. I said, but it's not perfect for me. I said, I went to the emergency room in November because I had pain and they sent me home. But it's perfect for you. And they cleared me for a routine surgery, even after seeing something in my calcium test score. And I went through a 6-hour surgery. I mean, it was for a tummy tuck. I don't mind telling my friends here. And I wonder what could have happened during that tummy tuck. And that was on April 18th. And then May 7th, I had a heart attack. And I still just thought it was an allergic reaction to flowers my daughter sent. And I spent all night not being able to sleep. It was not until my husband forced me to go to the ED and they were about to send me home. The only reason they did not was because there was a cardiologist on early morning rounds and he said, something's not right with you. And my troponin levels were going up. They're supposed to be 19. They were 27, then they were 40. And I text my cardiologist, they are overreacting. Just come see me next week. And then they continued to go up. And when they went in, I was 95% blocked in my left main artery.
Wow.
So when you ask me why there needs to be more Black people or people of color in healthcare and everywhere, it is to change the policies, practices, and procedures to ensure that we are asking the right questions and to ensure that we as consumers are okay pushing back.
Yeah.
Because the one thing my mother was good at, she would carry my card in her wallet. And when they were about to send her home, she's like, notice what my daughter says, and you're just sending Black women home to die. I was like, okay, Mommy, maybe you don't say it quite like that. Maybe you could soften that a little bit. But you check and check again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is why we need more people in places and spaces. And in addition to having Black individuals and people of color, we need allies who can help us sell the message. Because if it was up to people of color, we would have raised our hands long ago and said, yeah, this doesn't work for us.
Right.
We need people who can help us tell the message.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm gonna hop off my soapbox now.
No, you know what? You can stay right up there because I'm about to ask you another question and it requires that we both remain up there. So we've had the opportunity to, get a little bit acquainted and I have been working in this diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging space for about 20 years. And so, I'm very passionate about this space, as I can tell you are very passionate about the healthcare sector and the healthcare space. And as I think about I take an integrationist view of DEI. I don't feel like it's like, all right, okay, we're going to talk about this and now pause for station identification. And now we're going to talk about DEI. No, I think that we integrate. And so as I think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and I think about healthcare, I'm trying to see, that integration. And I'm curious from you, when you think about traditional DEI methods, and when you think about your lived experience and you think about your professional experience and your professional outlook, do you feel that traditional diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging methods will affect and impact significant change in healthcare?
I think if people see it as integrated,
Uh-huh.
that can move the needle. But I think we have to see it as more than a checkbox activity. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, all of you know, DE&I started in the 60s out of the civil rights movement.
Yes.
My mother was very instrumental at Morgan. She went to Morgan the same as I did, and she was imprisoned for 5 days. All the jails were full for integrated movie theater. And I think at the time it became a movement that, affirmative action, and we're going to look at the HR function of DE&I. But people are complex. Life is complex.
That's
we
right.
cannot look at it with a single lens, nor can we look at it as a DE&I department, a DE&I person. We need to look at it, DE&I is everyone's responsibility.
That's right.
It needs to be woven into everything that we do. So it needs to start at the top. It needs to be bottom down and top up and everything in between.
Simultaneously.
It needs to be written into our policies, practices, and procedures. It needs to ensure that, because if we take traditional DE&I and we have events and we have typical trainings, we are not going to move the needle, because then when the person who's creating the events and the person who's creating the trainings leave, so does DE&I. But if in fact we change the policies so that equity is woven throughout, then our children and our children's children get to benefit because of that. We're sitting in the space that we are because laws, policies, and practices are built inequitably. And until we can unweave that, we are still going to be talking about this 60 years from now. And we have to be courageous enough to look it in its face, to say what it is, to not feel blamed because of it, and say, oh, well, I didn't do this. Oh, it's not me. Well, of course, it's not any of us. And we have to also say, well, when these things were created so long ago, most of us on this call weren't citizens, right?
Yeah.
The only people who were citizens when it was created were Anglo-Saxon, cisgendered, white males, period.
Yeah.
So that's who it was created for. And now we need to fix it and stop feeling the blame. And I think, therefore, we need to look at people as the complex creatures they are, because I think in healthcare, even as we're trying to fix the social issues of people, we're saying, oh, those poor little Black people, we only want to fix the poor ones. And I always try to use myself as an example because, I don't want to tell anyone else's story. I used to be 120 pounds heavier. I grew up in Trenton, which is a low income area, but I had two parents who worked every day. My father identifies as Black in Delaware Nanticoke. He promised he would always stay, which he did. My parents were married 57 years. They celebrated their 57th 2 days before my mother died. He worked on his back 17 hours a day under cars so that we could always we went to the very best schools in Princeton because my parents felt the education was the great equalizer. And so I had the best. I never went hungry. But I have other social determinants. I was overweight. I worked even in ICU after my heart attack. I had my school laptop on one side and my work laptop on the other. So I have other social factors. And until we can begin to see that all of us are diverse, not all Black people, but DeAnna Minus-Vincent, Cosette, Strong, Kabira White, Lillian Forsythe, we're all diverse. And until we can look at each person individually and figure out how to serve them like that as a diverse person, and then figure out the best services and supports, we're not going to move forward.
Yeah. I love what you just said, and what it makes me think is, we're working with some outdated systems, right? And I believe that the way to move the needle, like we're talking about, is to work across sectors, right? Like you said. And I feel like that's what your goal is in your career, because throughout your career, you've contributed to many different sectors, right? I said it at the beginning: equity, poverty, housing, health, education, that's just to name a few. And so as we're thinking of these outdated systems, trying to work within these, which is not successful, has not been successful. Why do you feel that it is essential to work across sectors to fix these outdated systems and to impact the change so that we're not having the same conversation 60 years from now, like you just said?
I think it's essential because, again, life is complex. People are not one-dimensional or even two-dimensional. They're multi-dimensional. And you should be able to bring your whole person to the workplace, to your doctor. We know that only 20% of all health outcomes are due to what happens in the clinical office. And we're spending far too much as a country on poor health outcomes, poor educational outcomes, poor housing outcomes, and they need to be like this. And I think it's particularly critical now. I mean, COVID, we saw so many innovations that happened during COVID. But we're not going to see so many of them come to the fore if they only stay in singular lanes. So for instance, we may have seen an innovation, a health tech innovation that really helps Black women with their autoimmune disease. Okay, well, that's not really gonna move the needle until they come up with an umbrella solution around, this is what wellness looks like. And this is what wellness looks like for people with autoimmune disease. And then if you happen to be a female, this is what you need to do. If you happen to be a female who is Black, this is what you need to do. So you need to think about algorithms that serve more broadly. And no one system can do it all. I know we've tried, how healthcare has tried to do housing, but you also need the housing partners. And I don't think any one sector has tried to be siloed. I think people just historically have kept their head down, try to do their job because they just don't know how or who to partner with. And I think partnering is hard. And I think a part of my role in the outcomes architect is understanding the partners. I've had this career where I've touched on a lot of partners and brokering these true partnerships, and then figuring out, especially in the health world, how do you build the right integrations? What are the right APIs that really need to happen? How do you then go to employers or payers and say, we're the 5 services that can truly move your population along, and this is what the continuum looks like. And we're a bundled service that can really help this patient population or this employee population. Because I think a lot of times people need to understand, well, why? Why would I want to do this? But you need to do it because your patients continue to be unhealthy. Your employees continue to be unhealthy. And it results in absenteeism, retention issues, so turnover issues. And at the bottom of even if you don't, I hate to say, even if you don't care, you care about your revenue.
That's right.
And all of that turnover costs billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in absenteeism and turnover costs. So that's why integration. I think the reason it hasn't happened is people just don't know where to turn. They don't know where to start. But also there's a lot of, as one of my old former bosses used to say, collaboration. There's a collaboration and everyone wants to, chase a dollar. I could do that, but you can't do it well. Stay in your niche and find the right partners and trust that you can work together.
Wow. Yeah, I thank you for giving us some strategies to create actual systems change. I think that's something we don't talk about enough. We talk about, Band-Aid solutions, as I like to call them, right? And what I like to say is, sometimes we take a Band-Aid and we slap it over a gushing vena cava, right? And we know that's our main vein. What is that going to do? Is that going to save my life? Absolutely not. And so we need to talk about systems change more, and we need to be more aligned about where we're going, right? Some of the time I think about problems, people say, well, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. We get so stuck in the minutia of how to get there. And we can't also agree on where we're going. And so we're like hamsters running on a wheel, right? And that does nothing but just put energy, just waste energy. And so we're not actually moving the needle. We're not actually having the impact we want. We're not affecting that sustainable change. And I am curious from you, you talked about your previous role at RWJ Barnabas Health, and then you transitioned to starting your own business. How did you do that? What was the impetus for that change, and what motivated you to transition your career in that way?
Well, I think I'm no different than many women, especially women of color. I think it's part of a national trend. I think we have seen since 2019 more Black women leave corporate America than ever before. And I think and to start their own businesses. And I think while it's phenomenal for entrepreneurship, it is detrimental for corporate America. I think we know that corporations that have more diversity, they increase revenues, innovation is better. They just have more to give. So I think from a global standpoint, I'm no different. I think from a very personal standpoint, I think it was mutual. I think everyone needs to understand when their time has come. I used to travel 78 miles each way to get to work.
Wow.
For something that I really loved to do. 2022, as you heard, was really hard for me. And I think it was a time to reassess who I wanted to be and what I wanted for my life. I mean, I am not getting any younger. I know I look 35, but I'm 52 years old. And I haven't had a heart attack and worked. And every time I think about sitting there with my laptop in my ICU bed, I just want to smack my hands. But, and then losing my mom in June. And my dad is sad. He's broken. And he needs me. And I think also at a time when RWJ Barnabas Health was transitioning leadership, and they were looking at where their next path was. And it was a time where we both needed to reassess where we needed to go, and it wasn't together.
Yeah.
And so it was an easy decision for me, and I couldn't be happier. I didn't want to sound so giddy. I'm sorry.
You should sound as giddy as you want to.
But it has been, and I've never, I always saw myself as an entrepreneur. Like I worked in companies and I've changed them. I saw myself as this change agent.
Yeah.
And in January, I said to my husband, I said, I think the universe is calling on me to be an entrepreneur. Like I had been having conversations and And he said, whatever you want to do, I will carry your bags. And I was like, oh, like he's always been the steady Eddie who works in state government. He does. And I was like, you sure? And here I am, and I am having the time of my life because my new boss, she is so cool.
I think she is too. I mean, I haven't known her for very long, but I'm just gonna put that out there. I think she is too. Oh, I love it. I love to see your smile. I love to hear you talk about your happiness. I love your giddiness that is coming through the screen. So let's talk about your organization more, the outcomes architect, right? This advisory group, you work across sectors to integrate services and reimagine how health is addressed and how services are delivered. So talk to me more about your organization.
Yeah, so I'm kind of building and as I fly the plane. So it's really about, I'm working with a lot of VC firms, a lot of health tech, health media firms to really figure out exactly what I said. How do you work with employers to ensure that their workforce is healthier? To ensure that they are meeting all of their employees' needs through training, through one-on-one coaching, to train in a different sort of way. Because, and I didn't really talk a lot about my role at RWJ-Barnabas, but it's been the body of my work. So working across all of the sectors to make sure we're doing this. But when I joined, and you'll see kind of how it fits together, but when I joined RWJ-Barnabas Health, it was to think about integrating social factors into the clinical setting using data-driven strategies. So understanding that if a diabetic patient comes in and we give them a medication that says take with food, we cannot expect them to do that without also asking them, can you afford the food? Is there a grocery store in your neighborhood? Do you know how to prepare healthy foods? And if they come back to the emergency room and they haven't taken their medication and we say, oh, these people are so non-compliant, but we didn't ask you the right questions.
Right.
We know that 50% of all individuals they are non-adherent with their medications for a whole host of reasons. And so that program, Health Beyond the Hospital, really helped people. We asked them about their social factors in a multimodal way. So we asked them via text, because, and I made sure that we asked everyone, because clearly I might be asked and Dr. Michelle might not be, especially if we're in our jeans in a waiting room, because they're like, oh yeah, DeAnna, she can't afford this. Yeah, we're not going to do that because bias and stigma get inserted.
Yeah.
And so, and then also the intensity and the duration that people get followed up. And then just from a revenue perspective, we want to follow up people via text, because that's 1 cent from their doctor, as many times as we can, and then reserve the number of people we follow up via outreach or nurse home visitation, because that's 3,000 compared to 1 cent.
Yeah.
So you want to reserve those, as opposed to, the social service system has historically given all low-income people outreach workers. Well, just because I'm low income doesn't mean I want somebody coming to my house.
Right.
I might work 2 jobs.
Right.
And I only have 3 hours to spend with my kids. I don't want you at my house.
Yeah.
So really that piece of it. So really modality, intensity, culturally, linguistically, educationally appropriate follow-up to provide that. And then in 2020, they tapped me on my shoulder to end systemic racism for the system. So it was those 2 experiences, combined with my experience in housing and education and maternal child health, that led me to say, okay, well, all of these pieces need to go together.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I look at all of this burgeoning health tech and make it all go like this, so that we're really serving employees and employers and educational systems to do this, to really help people reach their end game and achieve optimal outcomes, and not just low income people, but everyone. And then further it with my dissertation, which is on employee retention, and how employers can keep people engaged and not disengaged. So that is how the outcomes architect was created, and really kind of following my passion, and that's kind of where we're at. So I'm working with a lot of people. I've also brought along a cadre of really smart women, primarily women of color, who have left the workforce either by will or because they've gotten displaced, and to help me because it took me so long to leave because I thought there was no work out there. So there's work out there. People need it, and I think because I think a lot of people have frontline workers and they don't know how to assist the whole person. They've only been looking at their employees as a paycheck.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not why people leave jobs. Their managers don't know how to talk to them. They don't know how to provide a full benefits package, because benefits extend far beyond just healthcare. Right. Because it is, especially for frontline workers, where even the management of frontline workers make $52,000. For a family of 4, you can qualify for SNAP up to $45,000. Yeah. And it's hard for your employee to say, I can't afford food. Yeah. So how do we destigmatize that? So those are the kinds of things we talk about. How do we do that? How do we make sure that all of your employees are getting third-party exit interviews so you can hire better, so that you can do all of that? So those are the kinds of things that I'm helping my partners with.
DeAnna, I am
great.
I am blown away right now. I am inspired. And yes, Deborah, in the chat, we need a part 2. Okay. So I'm just putting it out there. Part 2 of this conversation. You are a force to be reckoned with. My last name is Strong, but you are a force. I can feel it through this screen, and I am so energized on this Friday morning. So thank you. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you. I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness. I also feel like I am hogging you. And so we want to open it up to the rest of the community to join in this conversation. Please, if you have a question for DeAnna, because I have a lot, I could continue on for our next 12 minutes, but if you have a question for DeAnna, please raise your hand, let me know. We can, take you off mute and spotlight you to ask a question yourself. I do see a question in the chat. Takia has asked, how do we start in corporate America? You mentioned so many people, in droves, right? Leaving corporate America. How do we start? How do we bring equitable healthcare to our employees? Who do we collaborate with? What's a starting point? What are your thoughts there?
You collaborate with the outcomes architect.
Yes, you do.
But also, I think a few things that we did early on when I worked at RWJ Barnabas Health, and I would be remiss if I didn't shout out my colleague and friend, Kabira White, who helped me build out our equity strategy at RWJ Barnabas Health. I'm a data girl. And I also have to shout out Lillian Forsyth, who helped us along our journey with educating and some of our workforce and our leaders. The whole first year we spent looking at the data, and we got flack for that. Like, oh, they're just talk. Well, you can't build out a strategy if you don't understand what the problem is.
That's right.
We had over 300 focus groups, and we had focus interviews, and we looked at employee data. We looked at patient data. We did market analysis. We looked at evidence-based strategies. I know Kabira and them, they were so sick of me, but a lot of people are sick of me, and I'm okay with that. We spent a lot of time to understand our workforce, to come up with goals and strategies and tactics. And it was focused around 4 key goals. The first was around our patients, that we wanted equitable clinical care. The second was around our workforce. The third was around our communities. And the fourth was around our operations. And then we had 33 metrics that came underneath it, and 15 of which sat on a scorecard for system-wide goals. And just to lay the groundwork, RWJ Barnabas Health is the largest healthcare system in the state of New Jersey and the 15th largest in the country. And then we tied the metrics to people's bonus structures, which made me so popular. But that's okay. That's fine. Popularity wasn't my goal. And so that is, and then the other thing we did is we took, during that year that we were just talking, we had something called Equitable Encounters, Real Talk About Race, because we wanted people just to get comfortable saying the language. Like, you could say that Black woman over there. That's perfectly fine. Don't say the tall one with the glasses and the curly hair, because that's not really going to get you there. We had a lot of educational components, and we gave people tools, because when you talk about equity here, people get intimidated. So giving the people things that they could do tomorrow, like, what can you do to be an ally? What is the vernacular that you can use and you should never use? Like you shouldn't, you can't say that. And then letting people know that we're human and we need to grow. Like, I always use example, we had this, say this, not that. One thing, chop, chop. Like, I used to always say chop, chop. Like, I did not know that was racist. Like, I had no clue. I just didn't know. And blacklist, whitelist, grandfather clause. We changed our contracting structure to have equity language built in. So taking tangible steps that people can use in their departments that they could do tomorrow. So really, taking those steps before we took the giant leaps, because those are things that we could celebrate today.
Wow. I thank you for providing some tangibility. I think a lot of times when we talk about equity work, when we talk about allyship, when we talk about the work of diversity and inclusion and belonging, we talk about big concepts. We talk about big ideas, pie in the sky things, very abstract, right? And so oftentimes it is hard to cull it down to the concrete. People ask, well, okay, what now? And so thank you for providing that tangibility. Please, everyone, if you have a question, please submit it in the chat or raise your hand so that I can spotlight you and you can ask our guest co-host yourself. In the meantime, while we're waiting for more questions, I have another question for you, DeAnna. One of the things that really struck me earlier, you were talking about the whole person, contributing to the well-being of the whole person. And I don't know why that struck me the way it did, but I feel like so often we do practice reductionist moves. We really do. And we just say, okay, you're reduced to this, you're reduced to that. I am curious to know why it's critical to adopt these whole person approaches and how we can start. But before I ask that question, I see a hand. Michaela, go ahead and unmute yourself. I'm going to spotlight you.
Thank you. So I ran a school for over a dozen years, that a K-12 school that I started. And part of my mission from the get-go was to make it a very diverse community across a variety, the widest variety of race, socioeconomics, anybody who came to the door who was a good fit, any kiddo, I found a way to make it work financially. The big problem I had is that the biggest problem, ultimately I got fired by a very racist, white British new board chair, and we have a case at the EEOC that I'm so gonna freaking nail them on, but because I taped a bunch of stuff. But the challenge is that I want to be able to face better next time, because I'm starting a new school here in New York City, is that I found the two trickiest pieces that I know are interwoven, and I don't know how to tease them apart. I don't know how to wrap my mind around it in a practical sense, is that I don't know who to trust. There are so many white liberals, and I know I'm fair, right? my grandfather's West African. White people don't see me as white. Black people don't see me often as Black. Brown people think I speak Spanish. I don't know what, whatever I am, I'm a mix. But when I want to do authentic diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, most of all work in my school, and I hire a partner I adored and really loved working with, and she turned out not to be someone I could trust. And she was half First Nations and half West African. And when the white teachers, predominantly white teachers, started to push back and say, well, you're doing these workshops and we already know this stuff. We've taken these workshops before. We've been here before. And I know I did it wrong. I know that my partner that I chose to do the DEI work with me didn't have the biggest, the largest, most inclusive vision, really didn't have this like holistic vision that you do, right? Like, I know I'm going to be calling you wherever you are. I know I'm going to be doing that. But, the really frightening thing that was so traumatic, and why I wrote there in the chat, and then I'll be quiet. I think I'm going on too long, is that, it's just, I feel like I'm running blind, man. I just don't know. People say they give money to liberal causes, millions, some of them on the board, right? And suddenly I've been betrayed and the ground has been taken out from underneath me, and I'm gonna start again, and I'm not a teenager. I was 15 years younger then, and I'm gonna do it again. It took me a long time to figure out, but I am scared as sorry if I'm not allowed to say that. I just don't know who I can trust and how I can figure that out. And it's not always women of color.
Yep. So betrayal is rough. You have to work really hard to find people and places where you can trust people. And I think a lot of us have been burned. So I think you just have to really find ways to cultivate that. As far as in the organization, like, test the readiness, do readiness assessments, see if people are ready to take that step. And then another piece of advice is, because we're running, and I saw a question too from Andrea there, but as different states are coming up with their views on equity, everyone wants to know is, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? So even your liberals, however they define that, is at the end of the day, and this is going to sound a little bit all lives matter-ish, and it's not intended to be that, but it comes down to basic humanity. While we know that equity, some of us are starting in a hole. I got it, been there, done it, whatever. But the end game is, for people who are naysayers, if you have to get stuff done, you have to talk in their vernacular sometimes. So it may be, I have to talk to it by dollars and cents. For people who are liberals, because it sounds like you created a school that was diverse already in there. We know this and we're already doing this. Well, are you? So you have to show them that there are people who are starting the starting point is so further back for them, and you have to show them that. And you also have to show them that, yeah, the finish line is in the same place, but you don't have the same barriers and hurdles that are thrown in the way, nor do the rules change halfway through, nor are you questioned every day. And that is something that we're building out some simulations that we're rolling out by fall, so that people can see that, because I just don't think that people understand those challenges. And that is one of the things that I heard as we were rolling out Ending Racism, is we just never knew it was so bad. So I think those are things you have to continually teach, because people don't understand. They don't know what they don't know. But it does come down to basic humanity too. So those two things, raising awareness in a different sort of way, and then also teaching people what basic humanity looks like. And I know we're out of time, Cosette.
We are, and I am so disappointed. Thank you, Michaela, for your question. Thank you, DeAnna, for being here today. Would you please leave us with one last sentence of wisdom so we can continue to soak you up and take you with us into the weekend?
Sure. So in honor of my mother, I leave everyone with this, and in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I tell everyone, it is fine not to be fine. Speak up if you need to, and get help as much as you need to. So thank you all so very much.
Wow.
And
Thank you.
thank you for allowing me to be a part of the conversation.
Thank you for being here with us, DeAnna. And thank you to our Intentional Conversations VodCast community. Thank you for being here and spending this hour with us. We will see you next week. Have a safe and amazing weekend. Bye-bye.